Last round of the chess tournament. No time to prepare for this guy. The rate in the second round of the day, the pairings just come out just before, so you can't do that fancy stuff I showed you in the last game. I play well in this game. Overall, played fine. The overall result is fine, especially because I played so badly in some games that I'm probably underperforming a bit, and lots to work on for next year. And I really enjoyed it, which is the main thing. I really loved it. Okay, so this game I'm white. I play e4. This just down here where I'm highlighting, this is the engine lines. I've got it telling me the two best lines. You can have the three or the four best lines, but it just affects the speed your computer works. So I've just got it on 2. So I play e4. He plays. Doesn't want to do it. c6. I play d4. He plays d5. We saw this earlier in the game. This is nearly always heading for a Caro-Kann, where he takes the pawn now, but he does something different. He goes e6. This is not common, and I'm not prepared for this, so we're completely out of my opening study now. I think that's one thing I have to remember with the loss in the last game is if a position looks slightly different to the one you know, consider it as totally different. In the last opening, when I messed up so quickly, I sort of thinking I'm in the opening and I can't make a mistake that will lose the game. You just got to you've got to stop thinking about producing moves you know by rote versus thinking solidly about everyone. So now we're completely out of my opening prep. I need to think for myself. Just develop a move, can't be bad. Now the problem with his opening is quite obvious, is that this bishop is terrible. And it will be terrible for a very long time. And that is going to be my persistent advantage in this opening, of him having a white bishop that's terribly locked in and useless. So his main goal will be to try and exchange that bishop. And I will be trying to not let him do that, along with all the normal things in chess. He puts the knight here. That's provoking me to do this move, which I do. And the knight has to do a second move over here. This is sort of a French structure now. I have the center and space. He can't let me have that. It will be bad. He has to, over time, challenge that. So his game will be to challenge this pawn with one there. This knight will come to here. This bishop, this queen will probably come to here. And there'll be lots of pressure on this pawn. He will also try at some point to move that pawn forward when he's ready, and he needs to break down my center. If he does that, he might even advance these light pawns and his bishop might be better. So that's the main battle in this position. Okay. With that said, I need to protect this pawn on d4, this one. So I'm going to move a piece twice too. And he's saying his waste of time with moving the pieces twice is not too bad, because I have to do the same and the position's close. So he does attack that pawn and I'm able to defend it with c5. So we both know what's happening in this position. He develops this piece. You can see he's putting pressure on here, as we said. I want this bishop in a good position. So I move this knight. Over here. He attacks the weakness as planned. He just keeps doing the same thing. And now he puts the bishop down here, forcing me to do something. And as of now, the database says in top class games, this is a new game. We haven't been here before in millions of games. Okay, the only one move I have really is to block that, otherwise I lose pieces. And he gets his queen here as well. So he is attacking this. He's got 2 pieces attacking it, and I've only got 1 piece defending it. So I need to do something about that. My options are to advance this pawn and force him to take me, or to put my bishop on c3. And I put my bishop on c3. And my thinking behind that is saying, go ahead, take my bishop. It's fine if you want to, because my bishop is my bad bishop. It's blocked in with pawns. Your bishop is your good bishop. If you take that, you only help me. The pawn on c3 will be a bit weak, but I will be better because of how bad your black bishop is. The computer agrees. I'm 0.7 of a pawn better. He castles. That's really good for me, castling, because it lets me put my bishop into the best square. It looks like now that this piece is attacked by 2 pieces and only defended by 1. there, but that's not quite true because of him castling. If he was to take this, I have a check here that wins his queen. So by castling, he's let me get my bishop to the best place. He then opens, does the second line of attack and attacks my center. And this is what chess is about: is seeing what your opponent wants and preparing for it in the best way, blocking what he wants while achieving what you want. I cannot really let him advance that pawn to this square. It will block all my attacks. I really want to open that up, and that the reason behind that is he has this terrible pawn structure blocking his bishop, and I have this very strong square to play. I want pieces on there. I want a piece permanently on that weak square. Then I'm much better. Okay, so I castle. He develops. I put rook to e1. I just need pressure on this square. I want to control this square. He wants to. So how does he? What does he want? I want to control this square. He wants to move this pawn forward. Whoever achieves that goal will be better. He will be equal if he does that. Whereas if I get a piece on there, I'll be a lot better. And then I think for quite a long time about this move. And I like my move that I find. I go queen here. The idea being that I'm going to force off those bishops. The ones that I said before that his is better than mine. It protects the weakness here if it goes back. I'm going to force it off. He can't stop me because if he retreats that bishop, I'll take his queen and double his pawns, which is bad for him. So he can't really avoid it. He tries to. He does this move, trying to avoid that. It doesn't avoid it because I can play a3, which is a really good move for me as well, because then it stops a knight later coming in here and threatening my bishop. So that's a good move for me. He has to take my bishop, and he does. And then I take with the pawn to make this structure stronger, and I've got attack on a weak pawn back here. So we actually have similar positions here, don't we? He's got weaknesses here and here, and I've got a weakness here on c3, but I'm targeting his weaknesses better than he's targeting mine, so I'm better. Right, it's a totally playable game. White just still has a good advantage. He retreats his queen. He's covering this square, still trying to push this. And this is the best move of the game for me, is I play h3 because I'm preparing to put a knight on there that he can't get rid of. And the reason he can't get rid of it is if now, well, I'll show you in a second actually. Now, if I put a knight on here straight away, he can take it. I would take with the rook, but if I tried this idea, he could move here and he would win that pawn back. So I'm preparing to block this idea of his with h3. And the question is, does that move, h3, let him push this pawn forward? And let's see what happens if he does now. If he does, I take, he takes, I take, and he has actually achieved it here. And look, and the position will be equal. But there is this sneaky move that I can avoid that. When he pushes forward, if I do knight to e4, he cannot take me because of this pin, and basically white stays better. So it's really, really complicated, that. And that is the crux of this game. It comes down to thinking about that one point, I would say, the main bit of the game. Anyway, so that is h3. All that thinking is to say that h3 is the best move on the board. And I think it's really hard to find, and I found it. So I'm pleased with myself there. He defends that pawn. It's not really, doesn't really need defending at that point. He could still try and push e5. Anyway, he does that. Okay, now I know that last bit was really complicated. That's about as complicated as I can understand. Knight goes to e5, and now he cannot take me. And the reason why he cannot take me after a3 is if he does take me and I take with this pawn, he loses at least a pawn, because look, this square, this square, this square, this square, this square are out of action. And if he lands here, he loses not just a pawn, but he goes here, and I'm going to win a pawn, and I might even get access with my knight to this strong square. Anyway, so that's that. So he has to leave my knight there. I'm occupying the weak square with a piece. I've got a big advantage. So he starts to double up his knights, his rooks on this line. I think he's thinking about and actually giving this knight a retreat square so he can take. I think I'm going to improve my worst piece. So this knight, I want it to go here, 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 and also be attacking that square. I think I've got time to do that. I back off. He takes my knight. Now I have a choice. I can take with the pawn, mess up my pawn structure, fill the weak hole that I actually want to use, but try and gain some initiative from it. Or I can just play classically and try and hold this weak square. And I want to play it hold the weak square. So I do that. And now, if he was to try and chase me out of this square by putting his knight here, I still own it. He's not going to be able to advance this. But actually at this point, he crumples, which is what happens to the best of us sometimes. So he's just too desperate to get that bishop out, and he says, I'm going to get it out and get rid of my bad bishop, even if it costs me a pawn. Or not a pawn, but even if it costs me a bad pawn structure. So he gets it there, I take it, he doubles the pawns in front of his king. That's bad for him, but maybe it's okay to get rid of that bad bishop. But he has let me win a pawn here, and it is a dangerous pawn to take. It's this pawn that is attacked twice and defended once, but I take it and I think it's fine. Now, one thing with chess is, if you give someone material or you win material, you nearly always give them what we call the initiative. So I won a pawn, but now I've turned all my advantages of weak squares and weak pawns into material, and he's going to get some attack against me. So you really have to be basically careful about when you cash in your advantage. And he's saying in this position, I think you shouldn't take that. I think you've cashed it in too soon. So queen comes here, threatening this piece, but he's also lining up against this weak pawn here. The only move I can do really is to defend that pawn. And now he attacks that pawn again with 3 pieces. I've got 2 ways to defend this. The best way is, and I think it probably is the best way in the game, is to actually move the knight forward and to let him take this pawn on f2 with his knight, but actually to take his back here, or with the queen. And that is the best move. And I thought it was in the game, but it gets complicated and I'm nervous. I don't trust myself at the moment because of those silly mistakes I've made. So I actually play the pawn move to stop those complications, which is less good. I can't take that knight because the queen would run down and take my knight and it would be game over for me. But everything of his gets quite pinned. So if he ever moves one of these 2 pieces off this square, I could take it. But the only trouble is moving pawns forward creates weaknesses, and he does now have squares around here which could be very useful for his knight and queen. And that's why this move isn't quite as good, because of these weaknesses. But I choose that. He gets his king out of the way. Good idea. Now I need to consolidate, get my position together again. I do that move attacking this pawn. The best defense is attack. Okay. He puts his knight into that square. The problem we talked about before, I've given him that square. I back off my castle. He pins. He's putting a pin here with these pieces. So I can't move the knight. I have to defend that because otherwise the pressure will build there. He plays a bit of a nothing move, retreating his knight. He wants to put the knight here, but the knight there is probably worse than the knight was there, so it's not that amazing. And now my knight goes to a good square, a weak square, and it's looking at going to an even better square here. So now I'm really out of trouble. I'm doing well. He doesn't want to exchange. Like in that other game, if he exchanges rooks, I get my queen on an open file, and I've got an extra pawn, and I've got the initiative and the control of the play. He's going to do better, so he moves away. I defend this pawn that he was attacking. He attacks this pawn again. I just defend it again. And now he really falls apart a little bit now, but it's quite fun for me that he does. He gets his queen into these weak squares. You can see how advancing my pawns gives me problems. And his idea now is that his knight comes here and he gets threats to take this pawn, which I can't take back, or to checkmate me if I move my queen. So he's just trying to get counterplay, as they call it. But I do this move. So the best defense is attack. And this has a nice idea that I'm attacking really well now because he doesn't see the problem and he just plays a nothing move. And now I have a really good check here. And I've straight into a savage attack. So he can't take me with the king because the knight defends it. And he can't take me with the pawn because the rook pins it. He has to run away. And now it actually is game over, a checkmate for me. But I miss it because... well, I don't. He misses it too, luckily. So I take this pawn, thinking that next move I have checkmate no matter what he does. But he had one get out of jail, which is a queen sacrifice, which I didn't see. So he should have done takes, and then the knight goes here, check, and he wins back my piece. And I'm 2 pawns better, but anyway, he gets to fight on. Anyway, luckily for me, he misses that, and he instead collapses with this move, and it's checkmate in 1, which is there. The end. So a long video to finish in a bit more detail. So my overall take on it is I would love to be a master in chess. And I'm improving year after year, but I'm definitely improving too slowly to get there. It's not going to happen. So do I give up on that dream? And I think the answer is not quite yet. I'm just going to try something different this year. I definitely need to improve a lot faster than I am doing to get there. Okay, thank you so much, Pete, for being my spectator. I've really enjoyed making these videos for you. Okay, lots of love to everyone. Hope to see you soon. Bye for now.